Hello and welcome into episode 9 of the Fourth and Whinges podcast with your hosts Mark and Rob. Good afternoon, Rob.
Good afternoon, Mark. Good to be back. It's been a while.
It has again. We're slacking, aren't we? We need to keep on top of this, I think. But we're obviously going to have some material now, so it's going to be nice and easy. Just need to figure out what the schedule looks like, I guess, and when we're going to be able to fit it in. But it's obviously the episode 9. We've done all of our episodes through the off season, so it's going to be a little bit different moving forward. We're going to have some a lot more topics for discussion, a lot more things to kind of go into in terms of games and players and things like that. So it should be a little bit different from the episodes we've done in the past. So today's episode is going to be a little bit different as well as we kind of transition into that. We're going to do some news like we always do, catch up on the last few weeks. We've obviously had roster cuts and we've had the full preseason now, so we're going to just talk a little bit about both of those. Then we're going to start looking forward at the season that's coming. So we're going to, for what it's worth, we're going to give our views on top 5 and bottom 5 power rankings, if you like. So who do we think's the top 5 teams in the NFL as it stands here today versus the bottom 5? So listen out to see if your team is in either of those. And then we're going to do some predictions on who we think are going to win some of the awards like Rookie of the Year, MVP, that type of thing. And then we're going to start with our pick'em. So each week we're going to pick all 16 games, myself and Rob, and obviously compete against each other a little bit. See if we can see if one of us is a little bit better at that. We've got a few that are different this week in week 1, so that's good. We tend to agree on a lot, don't we, Rob? So that'll be good to have a bit of a debate on that. And then also we're going to open that up to kind of anybody who's listening. Really, we're going to put details of a pick'em group out on social media and stuff. Once we get that set up, I think the Sky one's the one that we used last year, Rob, and I don't think it's ready yet. So when that does become available, we'll do that. So if anybody listening wants to get involved and kind of challenge us and see if they can beat us on the pick'em thing, then feel free to get involved. And then finally, we're going to finish on. I want to do a segment on college football and watch a lot of that throughout the year. And what I thought I'd do is bring to the podcast each week a player that I think has stood out in the last week of college football. So we're going to do that. We're going to call that Mr. Relevant. And I'm going to talk about somebody each week. So I've got somebody from week 0 in college, which was last week's kind of smaller selection of games. And then obviously we'll finish on the whinge of the week. Does that sound good?
Sounds good. Yeah, I like it. Let's crack on. It's going to be a bumper show.
Yeah, it could take a while, this, especially if I waffle. So I'll try not to do that. So news. Do you want to kick us off, Rob? Anything in particular that you want to pluck out of there? From the last
so news-wise, as you said, we'll just go over it very quickly. But so there's all the injuries that have happened. There's some of the QB battles that we've kind of started tracking earlier in the season. So just thought a quick run through those. In terms of the injuries, obviously, majorly at running back is where there've been the issues. Carl Lawson notwithstanding, but obviously a bit less of an impact there, although the Jets haven't had a decent pass rusher in years and years and years. So they very much needed Carl Lawson. So kicking it off, J.K. Dobbins obviously happened the most recently, getting injured. He's now out for the season. So far, they're yet to sign a replacement. They're just rolling with Gus Edwards, probably going to be the lead back there. I think he was going to have quite a big role anyway, because certainly the past few seasons they've emphasised that and they've spread it around quite a lot. So we're going to be looking for Justice Hill and Tyson Williams probably getting carries as well in that backfield. I think there is the potential that they might try and sign somebody for third down, depending on who else is out there in the market. And Kerryon Johnson got cut by the Eagles. I think he was injured, but I don't think it was a big injury. I think they were just happy with the depth they had with Boston Scott and Kenny Gainwell, their rookie that they took. So I mean, Duke Johnson is still out there. I feel like a bit of a Duke Johnson apologist, but yeah, I think the major impact so far is just sort of in the fantasy realm. So certainly Girth has been disappointed with some of these injuries, although J.K. Dobbins is on Gaz's squad at the moment. But so yeah, and then Cam Akers obviously getting injured as well. The Rams have looked to replace him by trading a 6th and a conditional 5th that can become a 4th for Sony Michel. which I think is probably a decent signing. He's shown some flashes in the past. It's not too big of a price for them. The Rams don't really like draft picks anyway.
No.
So it just gives them a bit more of a backfield committee, which worked well for them last year, to be fair. So Darrell Henderson's probably going to be the lead back. Sonny Michel will get carries. I think we might even see, we'll see Xavier Jones. I think we'll probably even see Jake Funk, who they took in round 7 this year as well. I can see them utilising a lot of different backs.
I thought it was funny on that one when there was talk in the Twitterverse of Gurley going back, and I was just like, oh my God, no, tell me they're not going to do that. Because he's still without team, isn't he, I think?
Him and his arthritic knees.
Yeah. I think Sonny Michel's a really good signing there. I think, personally, I would probably say that by season's end, he's probably had the most touches, to be fair. I think he'll probably take a handle of that position, personally, by the end of the year. And then, obviously, there's the biggest one for you personally, Rob. Travis Etienne, as he likes to be called. Obviously getting injured as well. That's potentially quite a big injury for the Jags, I think.
Yeah, I think he was going to play. Well, he's going to play every down. During training camps, he was lining up out wide quite a lot earlier in the season in the OTAs. He took snaps exclusively at wide receiver, which everybody made a big deal out of. But I just think you're in OTAs, it doesn't really matter at that point. But yeah, he was going to be a big weapon for us. Obviously, the chemistry that he developed with Trevor Lawrence at Clemson as well. So a big loss. I mean, thankfully, we've got James Robinson there, who's obviously a different kind of back. But he had over 1,000 yards last year as an undrafted rookie. So we're fortunate in that position that we hadn't traded him away. So, yeah, I'm happy with that. We've got Carlos Hyde back, which I'm kind of not really sure on. But I think he'll see quite a few carries as well this season, to be honest. And trying to lessen that load on Robinson a little bit.
Yeah, I think, like you said, you're lucky. Well, not lucky, but it's good that you've got Robinson there to take the load. He's proven that he can kind of do that, but very different to Etienne, and you will definitely kind of miss the pass game side of things. We've all seen how effective people like Christian McCaffrey and Alvin Kamara are as running backs coming out of the backfield, and I suspect it will be. It will kind of limit some of the stuff that you're able to do in that offense, really. Maybe Laviska Shenault will benefit. He'll take a few of those snaps coming out of the backfield. I know he's kind of capable of doing some of that. But potentially a big injury there for you guys.
We also have Tavon Austin, who,
Yeah, move on.
Army knife that he is. But yeah, I think you're right. It will limit us, certainly with a rookie quarterback. You quite like them to have a weapon like that, just for some checkdowns, just for a bit of a safety blanket, just so they can use, just to get familiar with. And obviously, they're already very familiar. So yeah, not great for us, but we'll just have to get on with things. I think we've got quite a good wide receiving core this year, certainly better than we've had. You've got DJ Shark, Laviska Shenault. I think it's going to come on quite a long way. Marvin Jones, I think, was quite an astute signing as well. So yeah, we'll look forward to it.
I'm interested to see how they all play together, really. I think like you say, you've kind of got probably how I would describe is you've got a bunch of number twos. I don't necessarily see a number one. Now, I suppose Marvin Jones is supposed to be that. I don't know whether I trust him to be available every week to be able to be a number one, but I guess we'll see how that ends up turning out. And like you said, so it was mainly the running backs. They're the big injuries that we saw most recently. But you did touch on there, Carl Lawson, as you said. I think it's potentially a really big blow for the Jets. I think he's by far, or he would have been by far, their best pass rusher. So I think, that could be a bit of a bummer for them. I'll be watching them quite a lot this season. I've got a lot invested in them from a fantasy point of view, but I also like some of their rookies that they picked. Obviously, my man crush Zach Wilson as well. So I'll be watching them this season. So we'll be interested to see how they get on defensively. I don't think they were going to be fantastic defensively anyway, but this is not going to help at all. So the quarterback battles, we touched on some of those a few weeks ago, leading into the preseason. Some of the teams that we thought were interesting, and obviously we've seen the outcome of those now. Is there any in particular that you want to talk about that you think most interesting? I know I want to have a whinge about one of them, but I'll let you go first.
I think probably New Orleans. I'd like to just touch upon. Famous Jameis getting his second opportunity. Definitely the right call. I think we spoke about in the last pod. I'm not sold on Taysom Hill as a quarterback at all. I think he can do a job for you there. I do think the Michael Thomas news might have influenced that in a way because they're very light a receiver. So Hill gives them the opportunity to line up at receiver, to line up at tight end, to put a few, some different crazy formations out on the field. I thought Jameis looked excellent in the preseason game against the Jags. Some of his throws are incredible. I thought Marquez Callaway also had an amazing game and made him look very good while he was in the game. Hill came in, didn't really do too much. He was very startled in the pocket and everything. I think if Jameis can curb some of his more aggressive kind of tendencies and just launching it down the field into double, treble coverage, it'd be fine. I'm sure Sean Payton's been coaching him on that for a while. He obviously had the benefit of sitting last year and watching Drew Brees. So I'm quite excited to see what Jameis will be like. And I think he might surprise a few people.
Yeah, I think, I certainly expected Winston to win out in that job. I think if he hadn't have done it, would he have got another chance like this? I think, he should have done. He's a former number one overall pick. And obviously the big change that we'll see is that he can now see because he's had laser treatment, hasn't he, on his eyes apparently. So now he can see. That's why he's going to play really well. But no, on a serious note, he has got all the talent. It's just about whether he can be tamed. And I think if Sean Payton can do that by kind of dialing back some of the players that they ask him to get involved in, don't ask him to do too much, too often, because we all know he can. He was a fantasy kind of god the last time he played. He can put up the stats. It's just whether he can win the games. That's going to be the difference. So we'll see how that goes. And I'm interested to see whether Taysom does carry on in these sub packages, on whether he gets kind of involved as just a tight end now, or whether he is going to take some snaps away from Jameis. I kind of imagine that he will do, because again, I think they'll want to just kind of not limit Jameis's involvement, but just kind of keep that in check. So I expect that he will still take some snaps at quarterback, and he'll have goal line packages and things like that. So they should be quite good on offense. I think the one, like you say though, the one kind of caveat there is wide receiver. I don't think they're very strong outside of Callaway, and even Callaway is not proven. So without Thomas, they've not got a lot out there. But yeah, I think he should have won the job. He did win the job. I hope he goes on and plays well. I like his style. I like watching him play football.
Definitely, he's exciting, and he seems like a decent bloke.
So the one I wanted to touch on is one where because I think the New Orleans got that right. I think we both agree on that. I don't know whether we both agree on the Denver situation. Maybe we do. I don't know. But for me personally, yes, Teddy Bridgewater played slightly better than Drew Brees in preseason. And I emphasize the word slightly.
Drew Lock.
Sorry, what did I say? Drew Brees, did I?
Yeah.
Drew Lock. Yes. There's no way he would have outperformed Drew Brees in preseason. So yeah, Teddy. I'm the first one to like Teddy Bridgewater. I think you'll remember back in the day when he came out of college. I was a big fan of his at the time. He's suffered obviously that horrendous injury that was, I think it was during training, non-contact or something like that. It was a horrendous injury that occurred to him at the time, and he's been very unfortunate with that, and he's been lucky to kind of save his career really. I think it's taken the edge off of him as a player. I don't know whether that's a mental thing or what, but he's not really a starting quarterback, in my opinion. He's a fantastic backup, and he can get you the odd win. If he's on a really, really good team, he can win games, and he will win games this year. Let's not beat around the bush. Denver are a good team. So with Teddy playing quarterback, they will win some games. But they're not going to win a Super Bowl with Teddy Bridgewater. And if they play Teddy this year, they will win 7, 8, 9 games, something like that. They're going to be picking middle of the pack in the draft next year. So what are they doing next year from a quarterback perspective? Had they have just gone sod it, Drew Brees, I've done it again. Drew Lock, the last year of his contract, or coming up to the last year of his rookie contract, let's evaluate him again, one more season, get rid of him after this season, win 2 or 3 games with Drew Lock, pick high next year in the draft, because I just can't see Teddy's not going to win them a Super Bowl, and they're going to end up in kind of, as I said, in the middle of the draft, not being able to get a quarterback for next year. Then what do you do? If you're pinning all your hopes on Aaron Rodgers next year, I think you're doing your fans a disservice, in my opinion.
I mean, I disagree with you. This might be a first, but I think Teddy should have won out. I think Drew Lock is awful. I don't think he'd have played as many games as he has if it wasn't for the fact that John Elway drafted him and almost forced him on people. I think Denver, I agree to an extent around you're going to end up in the middle of the pack, but you just, at this point, you're wasting years of people's careers. So you've got Jerry Jeudy there. You've got, in his second year, I think he's primed to take a bit of a leap. You've got a fully fit, hopefully, Cortland Sutton there. You know, how many more years we've got to him? I'm not sure on his contract situation, but I think there's a lot left there. I think that I agree Teddy Bridgewater isn't exciting, but he's not going to turn it over as much. He's got some weapons there. Drafting Javonte Williams at running back. Melvin Gordon, I think, could have a decent season. Noah Fant, I quite like at tight end. I think if they have a competent quarterback, especially given their defense, I think it wouldn't surprise me if I could see them getting into the playoffs. I can certainly see them getting double-digit wins just with competent quarterback play. So I think you've got to go for who you think will get you the most wins. Vic Fangio isn't going to want to chuck Drew Lock in there because he's playing for his job.
That's the point. I'm not saying
his second season, he wants to have a decent season as well. So, yeah.
I totally get that, and I get that from a staff point of view, from a head coaching point of view, etc. They wouldn't have the balls to go with Drew Lock because they'll lose their job. But as a Denver, if I'm a Denver fan, and thank God I'm not, but if I was, and you're rolling into the season with Teddy Bridgewater, and we win 8-9 games, and we still don't have a quarterback next year, I'm not happy. I'm just not.
If I'm a Denver fan and you're making me watch Drew Lock for another season, I'm not happy, to be honest.
But if you do that, there's two ways that goes. Either Drew Lock improves, in which case you're in a similar situation as you would be with Teddy, or you suck and you get to pick a decent quarterback next year. Otherwise, what happens next year? You roll with Teddy again and get you another 9 wins?
Who are you picking next year then? Is there any guarantee that Spencer Rattler or Sam Howell or Keelan Slow?
There's no guarantee, but I think we would both agree, would we not, that Teddy's not going to win a Super Bowl?
I would agree he's not going to give you winning the Super Bowl, but he gives you the best chance of winning a Super Bowl, the best chance of having a decent season. Yeah, and who knows what happens in the free agent quarterback market? You don't know who's going to come available, who's going to go. I don't know. I understand what you're saying, and I get it. And like we did this last year, we tanked, we dropped Gardner Minshew, and
exactly. If you do,
which is great. You can't just keep doing that season after season after season because the Broncos have tried this. They took Paxton Lynch in the first round, so he was terrible. They've taken Drew Lock in the second. He's awful. So
where did they pick both of those players? That's the interesting thing. They were picking from the middle of the pack,
25th, wasn't he? And exactly. Lock was in the second.
Exactly. So, but if as a Jags fan, if you'd have carried on playing Minshew and won, how many games did you win? 2, 3, 1, just one. If you'd have carried on playing Minshew and won 4 or 5 games and ended up picking 6th, and would you have been happier in that sense than taking at the time somebody like a Lance, Trey Lance, or Mac Jones at the time? He's looked good in preseason. Mac Jones. We'll get onto that potentially, but. Or are you happier that they sucked, won 1 game, and got Trevor Lawrence?
I know it. I'll be honest. I didn't really watch us last season once we dropped Minshew because we were rather like Jake Luton, and it was just awful. So
for a reason. I
know, but I get it, and I'm happy now that we've got Lawrence. But last year was awful. Should we move on anyway? I don't think.
Yeah, let's move on. We could argue all day on this one.
It's going to be long enough, this podcast.
So San Francisco, the next one. This kind of it never really got going as a quarterback competition. I don't think. I think we were all a lot of people were expecting Trey Lance to give Garoppolo a much more of a run for his money than he actually did. I don't think he played particularly well. I think he did suffer from a few drops. I think I read a stat somewhere that his wide receivers dropped like 9 balls or something. Trey Lance had 9 drops or something in preseason, which is never going to make you look good. But I was expecting him to play a little bit better, even though I think we both said going in that he didn't look ready as a prospect and he was probably going to need to sit for a year. Whether he will sit for a full year, let's see behind Garoppolo. But it certainly looks like Garoppolo's won that job and he's gonna be starting for the foreseeable. I'm interested to see, as I say, if he starts all this season, does a kind of, and they sit Lance like they did Mahomes in Kansas City, or whether Garoppolo is on a bit of a pitch count, and if he starts losing games, is he going to just be yanked straight away? I'm going to be interested. Me, if I'm the head coach, I think what I want to happen, and I think I touched on this in a previous podcast, I want Garoppolo to play lights out for the first few games, look really, really good, see that Lance is progressing in training and things like that. Midway through the season, the quarterback goes down, you flip Garoppolo, play Lance, and away you go. That's the kind of best case scenario, I think, but we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, I agree with that. I definitely think starting Garoppolo's the right decision. Trey Lance played 1 game last year. That was it. The season before, I can't remember when he played, not a lot. He was playing at obviously North Dakota State, so it's not quite as good a standard. I think he was always going to struggle. I think the job is Garoppolo's for the season for me, as long as he stays healthy. Because we've seen when Jimmy Garoppolo is healthy, they got to a Super Bowl. When they first traded him, when they first got him from the Patriots, I think he was 6-1, sort of in the second half of that season. So he's no slouch. He's capable of putting a run together. He's capable of managing an offense. Yes, he in the Super Bowl, he was disappointing. He missed some throws that potentially cost them that game. And I do think they needed to upgrade. But again, I've said before on this that Trey Lance does scare me a bit. I think his ceiling is incredibly high, but I think his floor is also sort of very low. So I think ideally he does sit for the season. That way you can then look to flip Jimmy Garoppolo to, I don't know, Denver maybe, and give them another quarterback.
And get Teddy Bridgewater Part 2.
Yeah, you've got the backup.
Yeah, no, so that's interesting to see what happens there. The really kind of interesting quarterback decision that's been made, though, I think that kind of seemed to take Twitter by storm the other day as well, was obviously in New England with Mac Jones playing his tail off and winning that starting job, and then obviously what's happened on the back of that is the Patriots have just gone full hog and cut Cam Newton as a result of that. Interesting, I suppose there are 2 things really. Mac Jones played amazing. I think not everybody was expecting that. I think a lot of people were down on him because he doesn't necessarily look the part. He's not as athletic as some of these other quarterbacks. He's got a little dad bod going on, whatever. So I think people were kind of sleeping on him a little bit. He's obviously dropped all the way to 15 or whatever it was. The Patriots got him in the draft. I'm not surprised by how good he's played. I was a big fan, and I'm really interested to see what happens and to see the Patriot fans go way over the top and think they've got Brady Part 2 here and watch how that goes. Wouldn't surprise me at all if the Patriots go on to finish higher than Miami this year with some decent quarterback play, which Miami are not going to see. It's a really interesting one for me. I think then the bit around Cam Newton getting cut, I'm not surprised at that. I'm not surprised at that as some people. Do you want a superstar in Cam Newton sitting as your backup to a rookie? I don't think so, especially when a lot of people apparently in that Patriots organization really, really like Cam. And I think if Mac Jones does lose a game here or there, I could have imagined that locker room potentially turning or getting some bad vibes. So I'm not surprised that they cut Cam Newton. I've never been his biggest fan. I'm sure you know that. So I think, move on from Cam. You've got your quarterback of the future. Away you go.
I think they've made a mistake. I think they'll regret it. I really do. I think you give Cam Newton...
Which part of that, sorry?
Pardon?
Which part do you think they'll regret? The cutting of Cam or or starting Mac Jones, or both?
Both, to be honest. I think Cam had not the greatest off season, but not to sort of ruin our preseason takes, but preseason doesn't matter. He'd had a full off season in that training camp. He'll have known the offense a lot better. I think he's a different player, but on his day, I rate him. I think I quite like him. You've never liked him, and I get that. But at the minute, they've got Brian Hoyer and Jarrett Stidham backing up Mac Jones. If Mac Jones doesn't play well,
I think they released Hoyer as well. I think they've literally
released Hoyer. I think they re-signed him though. It was in like a transactional thing, okay. Like with Everton Griffin. I think it was to move some money around. I'm pretty sure that I'll check it, but well, if they have, and you've just got Jarrett Stidham as your backup, I would worry, because if Matt Jones doesn't play well and he's a bit dodgy, then you've got absolutely nothing. Bill Belichick isn't at a point in his career where he can afford to lose a season. He needs to be going all out to win, especially given how aggressive they were in free agency. For me, I'd quite like to have seen a veteran quarterback in there helming that. Last year, he had very few people to throw to. I think this year, obviously, they've got Ramondre Stevenson in the draft. They've got Damien Harris there. If you had Cam's sort of power running game, again, I know he's not the same player, but that gives you a different dimension. You can, this time he's got Hunter Henry. He would have had Jonnu Smith to throw to. Nelson Aguilar, a decent season. Jacoby Myers is another season in, another season of experience. And I think he would have had some more weapons. And I'm not as high on Matt Jones as you. I don't think he's a bum at all, but I think that, I think they've made a mistake. Interesting.
Let's see how it goes. And then finally, the Chicago Bears. You can go first on this one. What did you think about the Bears situation?
And I don't like this. We never disagree. I agree with you. We agree on this though. Yeah, Dalton's got to be the starter. They brought him in. They paid him the money. I don't think Fields. I think Fields is probably, for me, the second best quarterback in the draft after Lawrence, and I know you absolutely disagree with that statement. But Nagy and Pace are there for their jobs. If they start Fields, as you've said, there's nowhere to go from there. You can't just go back to Dalton. So if Dalton comes in, Dalton plays well, then they're all right. But then if they need a kick and they want to give it over to the kid, then they've got a different route to go, really. So it's the right move. It gives Justin Fields time to learn the offense a bit more. I know as a Bear fan, you want to see Justin Fields as soon as possible, but
absolutely. I think of all the quarterbacks that got drafted, of those that aren't going to be starting, so Lance and Fields, I think the fans in San Francisco are going to be much more okay with the decision than the fans in Chicago. But the fans in Chicago have to realize that if you put Justin Fields out there currently behind that offensive line, he's going to get killed. And let's use Andy Dalton as the sacrificial lamb and let him get killed, rather than doing that to you. What you're hoping he's going to be your franchise quarterback of the future. I don't think he looked ready. Some of the things that he got knocked for in the pre-draft process, you could see that in preseason. For what it's worth, yes, he made some plays with his legs outside the pocket, whatever, great. But do you want him running for his life on every play? No. So I think they've definitely made the right decision. How long they can hold out before the crowd burns down that stadium if they're not winning games, we'll have to wait and see. It's going to be a really interesting thing to watch over the season. So a 5-minute recap of the news has taken 25 minutes. Well done, Mark and Rob.
It's going well.
So roster cuts. Anything interesting coming out of the kind of the roster cuts that caught your eye when teams were getting down to 53? Rob, that you want to...
You were right about Brian Hoyer. He is on their practice squad. So
right.
I guess they can elevate him if they need to. But the roster cuts. So just very quickly, because we are going to be very, very short on time, I will dump some of the ones that I was going to think. I'll just pick some key ones out. So I thought it was interesting that John Brown has to be released by the Raiders, and they granted that request. I thought he looked pretty decent in Buffalo last season. I thought I'd give them a different option, bit of pace and all that. What I thought was the most interesting part was that they guaranteed $3.24 million of his salary only to cut him. So they're still on the hook for that, which is just quite frankly insane. I thought it was interesting that Josh Rosen latched on in Atlanta. He came in about 2 days before their last preseason game, played well enough to probably be the backup to Matt Ryan there, although they have also kept Felipe Franks, who I think was a UDFA, or they took very late in the draft. I think it was UDFA,
Yeah.
Another thing I thought was interesting, Detroit at one point didn't have a kicker on their roster, and you know that I like kickers and punters, but they have since claimed Austin Seibert following his release, so they've got a kicker there. It was a poor day to be a rookie wide receiver, because Cornell Powell got cut by the Chiefs, Des Fitzpatrick got cut by the Titans, and Daz Newsome got cut by the Bears. One of my sort of preseason takes was that there does seem to be a glut of wide receivers. It seems to be quite a deep position at the moment. You look at the rosters on certain teams, and the top 3 or 4, I don't think we've ever been in this position, so that's maybe a sign of that. But I know you were sort of quite high on Powell, expecting him to sort of maybe emerge as WR2 on that team potentially.
Yeah, definitely. I was disappointed to see him get cut, but I wasn't surprised given that he just didn't seem to feature in preseason at all. I think they've signed him back to the practice squad, I believe, so he is there, and hopefully they can develop him and all the rest of it. Hopefully nobody comes along and nabs him and then he ends up being good, but because he did look decent in college for me. So I was disappointed by that. But the guy that they kept in his place, I think it's that Fontaine guy. I must admit I've not really watched a lot of him, the Chiefs, but he did have a good preseason, so I can kind of see why they've done that, why they've made that move. So yeah. Okay. The preseason takes then. Should we move on to that? Do you want to start us off with some preseason takes?
Can I just say my favourite roster cut? This is just Lamar Jackson was my favourite cut, I think. He was a cornerback at the Jets, but I very much enjoyed that when it came out and people went mental. So preseason takes. Bit controversial, because my main preseason take is that preseason doesn't matter to a degree, but we'll roll through this. People need to stop playing the starters. I think Sean McVay's got it spot on. He very rarely chucks any. I know Cam Akers got injured, but he said there is no way in hell that Matt Stafford is seeing the field, which I think is absolutely the right move. You're not gaining anything from your starters. Yes, you probably would just want to go through the motion and get off some of the rust, but I just don't think it's worth it. And I think cutting it to 3 preseason games has been good as well. Week 4 of the preseason always used to be a pseudo bye week anyway, because nobody played anything approaching their first team. So I think that's been successful. I think that when I say it doesn't matter, I think that I did take out of it again, there was that wide receiver depth. Terrace Marshall's looks very good for the Panthers, and some of the other rookies have shined. Michael Parsons, I think everything I've seen him do, and again, it's a little bit biased because of Hard Knocks, I think, but everything he's done, he's just been an absolute menace, and he's been up against the first in theory. He's been the first on the field, he's been on a pitch count, but he's just been all over things. He's forcing fumbles, making tackles, just absolutely everywhere. So I think he's looked excellent. And then, as I referred to earlier, Jameis Winston season, baby. It's coming.
It's interesting. I think I don't know whether we do disagree on this a little bit or not. I don't think I would say it doesn't matter, and I'm not. I don't think I would be fearful of playing my starters. Maybe that's coming from a position where none of the Chiefs' starters have gone down injured, but I don't think you can be fearful of people getting injured, because they could just go ahead and get injured in week 1. Now, I know that that's kind of not the point. Why risk them at all? And I do get that, but I think if you're evaluating some of these players and some of these rookies and things, and you don't have your other starters out there, I think it's incredibly difficult to kind of compare apples for apples. And I think what it has done this year, with the different head coaches and organizations having a different philosophy, it's made preseason really difficult to watch, because not that it was ever really good to watch, but in the sense that you've got number 1s against number 3s in some scenarios, and it was just like, what the hell is going on here? You can't evaluate a number 3 player. Well, I suppose you can, but it makes it incredibly difficult, I think, in some of those scenarios. So I think it was really interesting, and I'm hoping that as we move forward and people kind of get to grips with this new season length and things like that it settles down and we get a week at least where the starters do all play together and things like that, like we used to have. I think some of the things that I pulled out of preseason, and again, maybe this is me overreacting to preseason that doesn't matter. But Detroit are truly awful. And we'll get onto this a little bit later. But
I definitely agree with that.
They are, but they're onto a hiding, because even when they play well, I think it was their first preseason game, first or their second preseason game, and they were winning with about 2 minutes to go. The defense had played really tough. You know, they were in there. They were really wanting to win that game as a defense. I'm not saying they were playing particularly well, but they were playing hard and they really wanted it. And then you've got your offensive coordinator or your head coach deciding to throw the ball. It's almost like watching that Atlanta Super Bowl again. And I know it's preseason, it doesn't matter. But when your head coach is throwing the ball with 2 minutes to go, rather than just running down the clock, and they end up giving the ball back to the opposition, they come down, score a field goal, lose the game. If that's how they're going to coach throughout this season, added on top of the poor talent that they've got, the Lions are in for a hiding.
But so my challenge to that would be, it doesn't matter if you lose. Maybe he just wanted to run a particular package. Maybe he wanted to try something. Maybe he wanted to see what they'd be like in different scenario. It doesn't matter.
I get that.
I went to watch Middlesbrough play York in the pre-season friendly, and we lost 2-1, and it was absolutely awful. But it didn't matter.
No. And I get the result doesn't matter, but I think if that's a glimpse into how that coach is going to coach and how he's going to manage time and how he's going to game plan and play, good luck. I mean, hopefully I'm totally wrong with that, and that's exactly what it was. And you're right that it was, we want to see this situational play. Let's pretend we're down and it's 2 minutes to go rather than up. If that was the case, then fine. But if that's a glimpse into how they're going to, call plays this season, I feel sorry for any Detroit Lion fan out there. I think they're going to finish last. I think they're going to have the number 1 pick. Yeah, there we go.
That is exactly what they want. And we've seen Dan Campbell coach before when he was the interim coach of the Miami Dolphins. I think after they sacked Joe Philbin, and I don't think he was great. I'm not expecting him to be great. It might be a one and done thing for him. But I know he signed quite a long contract actually, didn't he?
I think he has, yeah. But
I agree, they are going to be dreadful. Panay Sewell hasn't had the impact they thought he would have, certainly in pre-season, has he either? So
that's kind of was going to be my next point. Really, is it's interesting that like Micah Parsons was one of the players who obviously didn't play last year in college and has looked really good. And then you've got the likes of Penei Sewell and Jamar Chase who didn't play last year either and have looked pants. Penei Sewell, yes, he's switching from left tackle to right tackle, and I know it makes a difference. And I'm obviously no offensive lineman, so I don't know the ins and outs of it. But to look as bad as he's looked, that's quite scary from Detroit's point of view. So then you'd expect Cincinnati fans to be thankful because it was this whole thing about, do you take Sewell, do you take Chase? But then they took Chase, and Chase couldn't catch COVID if he walked into a room full of COVID patients. He has been horrendous. I love Jamar Chase, and hopefully it's just something and nothing, and week 1 he'll tear it up. But he's looked out of sorts, shall we say, which I found really strange, because if you'd have said to me before preseason Jamar Chase was going to drop 4 of his 5 balls and have like 6 yards in preseason or something, I'd have thought you were on some kind of hallucinogen.
Maybe he's dropping them on purpose just to sort of build up that resilience, because pre-season doesn't matter, so you're fine, don't worry. Maybe.
Well, the worrying thing that I heard on a serious note is that there's potentially some domestic abuse things out there with him that he's potentially having to deal with, accusations or whatever. And is it that's been playing on his mind? That's what I heard. I heard it on a podcast. I've not seen it anywhere else other than the one place that I heard it. I hope, obviously, for various reasons, that that's not true, and that he's just having, a bad time of it. But I would hate to see yet another incident of this type of thing kind of get in the way of football. Stuff like that shouldn't be going on, full stop. And, hopefully it's misinformation. But yeah. My other take, which I think is going to be interesting, is I don't think Houston is going to be as bad as everybody maybe thinks. And I've been one of the ones slamming Houston over the past 6 months or so. But I don't know. I saw a little bit of a glimmer of something, and I don't think they're going to be as bad as people think. I'll leave it there because we're short on time. But that's what I would say about Houston. Terrace Marshall, you touched on before. He looked really good for what it's worth. I was a little bit worried about the Chiefs and in particular Mahomes in the first 2 games. He kind of put that right in game 3. Again, I know it doesn't mean anything, but when he can't throw the ball 10 yards, I was watching preseason behind my fingers like this. To game 2, he looked, out of sorts, shall we say. And again, Zach Wilson just continues to impress me. And I'll talk about him a little bit later.
I'll let you. Sorry, I was just laughing throughout that. I thought that was
yeah. If you're not watching the visuals, there, Rob was laughing his head off throughout all of that. Clearly, we disagree on a lot today, which is interesting.
I know, I'm not used to it. No, I think, I wouldn't be worried about Mahomes. I get what you say. It is.
Did you see that second preseason game though? He literally couldn't throw the ball 5 yards.
But I think we've seen enough from Mahomes over the past few seasons that we know that he's going to be all right and he's going to turn it on when it matters. I know what you're saying, and if you're a rookie, then I guess it's different. You do want to see something. I know you were sort of a bit worried about Trevor Lawrence, and I get that because some of his play wasn't great. Game 3, he'd sorted it out, but yeah.
Well, I think with the Chiefs thing, just not to touch on it too much, but I think where I was coming from there is, outside of Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, what scares you about the Chiefs' offense? Obviously, Mahomes does, but we saw in the Super Bowl for different reasons. But the Buccaneers kind of were able to take Tyreek Hill out of the equation, and we really struggled. And I know that was a lot of that was offensive line issues, but without those two, if one of those goes down, it frightens the life out of me, the Chiefs team. And I just think, there's so much emphasis put on those three individual players. Yeah, we'll see.
I get that. I totally get that. You have remade your offensive line, so hopefully that should be a lot stronger this season and go from being a weakness to a strength.
But it's asking a lot for like 4 or 5 new players to come in and gel straight away. So I think it's going to be interesting to see that. But yeah. Anyway, we will move on. Anyone listening has got any kind of comments, thoughts on any of that? If they want to get in contact with us, you can do via Twitter or at the email address. We can do that. I'll pop that up a little bit later, and you can get in touch if you want to. So the next thing I thought we'd take a look at is just preseason. A lot of people out there in the kind of the football world will put out like power rankings. So how do they rank the 32 NFL teams? I don't want to sit here for another 3 hours and go through our individual thoughts on this. But I thought what it would be interesting is just a quick look at who we think are the top 5 and who we think are the bottom 5. Again, we'll agree, I think, on most of this, but I think there's some interesting things that we maybe don't, or some areas that we feel a little bit differently about. So I thought we'd just go through that. So do you want to kind of hit me up first with your top 5, Rob?
Yeah, so if we just run through. So number 1, I've got Tampa Bay. No brainer. They've brought everybody back from last season. They're running it back with Tom Brady. Makes all the sense in the world. I did read the other day, actually. I thought it was quite surprising that I think 6 of their 7 picks from the rookie draft actually stuck with the team, which is quite a testament when they've brought back all these veterans. So I thought that was interesting. But I think this is a very, very sort of minor point, but they had a Giovanni Bernard at running back. And I think that then gives Tom Brady another weapon, because we know how much he likes his third down running back. So, James White in the Super Bowl against Atlanta, I just think makes them even stronger there. So they've got Fournette, Rojo, and Gio Bernard now. So I thought, they're still number 1 for me. The Chiefs, I've got number 2. As we just touched on, they've remade their offensive line. I agree it's a lot for them to all gel at one time, but that was a weakness, and they've gone out and addressed that. We've got year 2 of Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I think he could take a bit of a jump, take a bit of a leap, and give you that sort of third weapon, and make teams scared, so they're not just taking Tyreek Hill out of the game because they're then bothered about Clyde running them over. I've got Buffalo at 3. I don't think they've really lost anybody, not anybody major. Well, they've lost John Brown, but we've already spoken about him. They addressed the pass rush heavily in the draft. They drafted Gregory Rousseau and Boogie Basham. So if one of them pays off, I think they're in a really good position. But I'm expecting them to be strong. The only caveat on that is if Josh Allen kind of takes a bit of a dip, but from what we saw last season, he looked a lot more comfortable, a lot more poised. So I'm expecting that to continue. Number 4, I've got the Rams. Just to say that I could have had a number of teams probably in sort of 4 and 5. There wasn't a big difference in 4 and 5, sort of maybe to the top 10. But I went with the Rams, and they've got a massive upgrade at quarterback with Matt Stafford. I think we'll see them run out a lot more expansive offense. I think Sean McVay is going to do a load of different stuff. They're going to be throwing the ball a hell of a lot more. That takes some of the pressure off the running game. So I just think that's going to be a massive upgrade. They lost Brandon Staley to the Chargers, their defensive coordinator, so it'll be interesting to see how his replacement comes in and gets on, but they're still as strong as ever. They've got Aaron Donald. They've got a very strong defense as well, so I can easily see them having a good season. And then at 5, I've just gone for Green Bay, simply because of Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, so we don't differ too much on this. I also have put Tampa Bay first. I think you're not going to get any kind of homer thing here with me and putting Kansas City there just because I'm a Chiefs fan. I think, like we said, I think that they've brought back pretty much everyone, and if they're the champions, they're the team to beat. And we've not seen any further play since the Super Bowl, so they're my number 1. The Chiefs, if we can stay healthy, we should be in the AFC Championship game again, in my view. But one kind of thing to note, how many teams go to 3 Super Bowls in a row? I think it's going to be really difficult for us to do that. And I think if we do, I think you've got to start talking about the Chiefs as the next dynasty. If we can make it to 3 Super Bowls in a row, I think, we're talking along those lines. I am a little bit frightened, as I said before, about the kind of depth on offense in terms of the skill positions. If a Tyreek Hill or a Travis Kelce goes down, I think it weakens us massively. So they have to stay healthy. That's key for me. I've got Cleveland number 3, which obviously Cleveland weren't in your top 5. They may have been 6 or 7 or whatever, because like you said, I think it is kind of close up here, and they're all fairly similar. But I trust the roster. I think for Cleveland, I think that's what it is for me. It's not a Baker thing. I'm not a massive Baker fan. I've got a really interesting take for anyone who cares to listen to me about Baker, in that I don't think they should be re-signing him when his contract comes up. But that's maybe for another podcast. But I do think they've got a fantastic roster, arguably the best roster in the AFC, only behind Tampa Bay for me in terms of just the overall roster. I think they're really they're stacked in some places. So I expect them to do really well. Baltimore, as a pure quarterback, I'm not a Lamar fan, but outside of the top 4 or 5 teams in the NFL, they seem to be able to play an offensive game that teams struggle with, and they're always good on defense. I expect Baltimore to play well, get in the playoffs, and once you're in the playoffs, you anyone can beat anybody really. So I expect Baltimore to do really well. So I have them at 4, and then I agree, Green Bay. They've got Aaron Rodgers. They're always going to have a chance because he's dragged them to Super Bowl in the past. He's dragged them to AFC Championship games. Just needs a little bit of luck maybe to get them over the hump. But and I think if you'd have taken Aaron Rodgers out of that team, you may well have seen this team in the bottom 5 for me potentially. I don't know. They've not got a very good roster, I wouldn't say, outside of that, particularly on defense. Not a lot scares me there really. But with Aaron Rodgers, they've always got a chance. So I expect them to be kind of back in the NFC Championship game again.
Yeah, I mean, I could have easily had Cleveland up there. I agree. Their roster's incredibly strong, just at all the positions. And I thought they had a very good draft as well. Baltimore, again, they're probably there or thereabouts. I think I just don't particularly... Yeah, I agree. I don't rate Jackson as a quarterback. I think he's an excellent athlete and an excellent football player, but he's not a great quarterback, traditional quarterback. But does that matter? Not really. No. I just also don't particularly like watching the Ravens, so I didn't really want to put them high in my rankings. But there could have been a number of teams. It's
interesting, isn't it? Because the difference, obviously, that we have there is I've got Cleveland and Baltimore, and you've got Buffalo and the Rams. For me, the Buffalo, I expect quite a bit of regression from Josh Allen. Yes, he's hugely talented, but I think I'm not 100% convinced that he is, a top 3, top 4 quarterback at this point. I think he's still got some way to he's got to be more consistent for me to be able to do that. And even if he regresses 5%, 10%, the Bills aren't winning as many games. Simple as that. Their division's got tougher. The AFC as a whole, I think, is stacked in terms of when you get into the playoffs. And yeah, if Allen just falls off just a little bit, I think they just won't be as good. So I haven't got them in the top 5. And the Rams, I don't even think they're the 3rd best team in that division. So we obviously disagree on that one, which is again another interesting thing to maybe talk about later. But yeah. So moving on to the bottom 5. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to give me mine first, Rob?
I went first last time. I'll let you go first this time.
So for me, I'm gonna go 28 and down. So let's build up the suspense. Although you already know. 28 for me. I've got Chicago. They've got the 7th hardest schedule. As I've touched on before, I think they've got one of the worst O-lines in the league, and I'm not convinced about their defense anymore. They used to be able to hang their hat on their defense all the time. They'd have, such a good defense that would carry teams. And in years gone by, with their previous defenses, you could have stuck Andy Dalton in there and probably looked okay. But for me, there are just holes all over this team, and they're in a really tough division with Minnesota and Green Bay. So for me, Chicago 28. I then have, controversially, I have the Las Vegas Raiders. Anybody who's listened to the pods knows I'm really not a massive Gruden fan and Raiders fan as a whole. Doesn't all come from being a Chiefs fan. Some of it is legit, and I just don't think they're a very good team as a whole. They've got the 5th hardest schedule. For me, one of the worst defenses in the league. Their O-line has gone downhill, and it comes down to the fact that I just don't trust Gruden as a play caller. I don't see that they're going to win many games at all in division. I think Los Angeles are strong. We're strong. Obviously, Denver with Teddy are going to win some games. I don't know where their wins are coming from. I just don't see it. At 30th, I've got Houston. 11th hardest schedule. As I said before, I don't think they'll be quite as bad as what some people think. I still think they're going to be bad, and I don't think they're going to win a lot of games. But, offensively, I think they might be okay. It's on defense where I've got more concerns. I'd expect them to win 2 or 3, 4 games maybe at a push. But I certainly don't think they'll be picking number 1. One team here that I've got in at 31 is that I don't think many people are going to agree with me on this, but my 31st ranked team is Philadelphia. I think they're going to really struggle this year. The only thing that they've got going for them is they've got a relatively easy schedule. I think they've got the 10th easiest schedule based on last year's wins and losses. But for me, they've potentially got one of the worst, if not the worst, rosters as a whole. I just don't trust their quarterback from an NFL point of view. I think he might be a good fantasy football player this year, but I don't see him winning many games at all. I think they will start Jalen Hurts, and it wouldn't be a surprise to me if we moved on to Minshew time midway through the season and we see some Gardner Minshew. I think it was a really good pickup for what it's worth, that trade that they made for Gardner Minshew. I just think he will eventually see the field because Hurts will be putting his team in bad situations and losing in quite a few games. And finally, as I've said before, Detroit, they've got the 2nd hardest schedule and they've got the worst team. I think it's a horrendous cocktail. So I think they're number 32.
Well, we'll run through mine and see where the similarities are then. There are quite a few. 28th, I've got the Falcons. Again, I probably found this quite difficult, actually. I could have gone in a number of different areas. Yeah. They don't really have a running game at the moment. I know they've got Mike Davis, who they brought from Carolina. Behind him, they've got Wayne Gallman now, after jettisoning Quadri Ollison. that concerns me. Not many running backs break out at the age of 28 like Davis did last season. I think it might have been a bit of a fluke, that one. So I worry about that. There's going to be a lot of pressure on Matt Ryan, a lot of pressure on Calvin Ridley, who I think is fantastic, and I think who can handle that. But they need somebody else to step up. So they need Russell Gage or Olamide Zaccheaus to step up a wide receiver to sort of give them some of that.
But they have Kyle Pitts.
They do have Kyle Pitts, but rookie tight ends are never very good in their first seasons, are they? And I'm a massive Kyle Pitts fan, but
I know. That's what shocked me when I saw it.
I thought you'd be shocked.
Yeah.
It's Arthur Smith's first season. We don't know how he's going to play out. Obviously, in Tennessee, he had quite a good running game that he used to lean on quite a lot. He had a different style of quarterback as well there. That was where he got all his success. So I could see that going south a little bit, really. 29, I've got the Giants. Joe Judge, I just think, is an absolute madman. I don't like his methods. They had a massive fight at training camp where they knocked it on the head early doors because he just couldn't control them. I don't think Daniel Jones is a good quarterback. It's a make or break season for him because they're going to have to make a decision on his fifth-year option after this. And he's shown sort of flashes, but even then, he's never really shown me that he's fantastic. Golladay was a major signing in free agency. He was injured quite a lot last season. He's not played consistently for a while now. They've got a lot of injuries too. Kadarius Toney has been injured. Evan Engram's injured at the moment. Kyle Rudolph is injured. There's a surprise. Sterling Shepard is Sterling Shepard. So there's also concerns about Saquon. Will he be fit? Are they going to sort of limit a bit of it? Some of his snaps. If we're seeing Devontae Booker getting rolled out as their RB1, then again that worries me just with everything else in that. So Giants are gone for 29. I've got Philadelphia at 30. So very similar to you. I don't think Hurts is very good. I definitely think we'll see Gardner Minshew. I thought it was a very astute signing, and I don't know why we let him go, to be honest, because I would much rather have a competent backup. If they'd have given us a second or a third round pick, absolutely fine, but I think it was a fifth. So I don't think we're going to get anybody as good as Minshew in, to be honest. So it was weird. Nick Sirianni, he was at the Colts. I don't really think he's done anything major to warrant the job, and some of the stuff that I've heard him come out with in press conferences kind of concerns me. Their roster's very weak, I think. And then 31, I've got Detroit for the reasons you've said. Jared Goff isn't a good quarterback, and he'll be throwing the ball mainly to the opposition, but when he isn't, he's got Tyrell Williams, he's got Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's got Quintus Cephas. So
I like St. Brown. Absolutely. As a group of wide receivers, it's not going to frighten many people.
And he's going to have to be good. He's a St. Brown, and he's maybe going to have to carry it. And then Houston, I've got last because I just think they're awful. They've got no plan. They've got no idea. Head coach is a lame duck. He's going to be gone after this season. Brandon Cooks might have a decent season. Who's going to be throwing it to them? Tyrod Taylor, Davis Mills. They've just gone out and picked up every man and his dog. There's no plan there.
It's interesting about that, isn't it? About what is their plan, and it looks so scattergun and kind of weird, and what are they doing? But I've got a bit of a thought on this. Are what they're doing? Are they? Because they brought in, like you said, loads of different people, loads of kind of backups almost. They didn't really sign anybody that was kind of top notch. It was just almost like a load of second stringers. I think their plan might be, well, if we give second stringers first team reps, some of them are going to look okay. And then what we're going to do is we're going to trade all of these people away, get a load of draft picks ahead of next year. And it wouldn't surprise me if they end up with like 20 draft picks next year to just go mental and, do it kind of Cleveland way where you just get all these picks and, you throw it all at the draft. That's kind of what I think they're going to do. But of course, what that does need is it requires those players to play well. And do they have the coaching staff to kind of make that happen? Do they have the quarterback player to make their skill position players look good? Probably not. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where they go from here, Houston, because they're in terms of just like a full setup. They're in just such a weird position that I don't think I've ever come across in the NFL. In terms of just, what are they doing? It's bizarre. So yeah, so those are our power rankings. So again, let us know what you think. If you agree or disagree with any of that, let us know. The next section we wanted to kind of touch on is obviously everyone. Every year you've got awards that are handed out at the end of the year. So what we thought we would do is try and predict who we think are going to win, the likes of MVP, Coach of the Year, Rookie of the Year, that kind of thing. So we've got that, and then also we just thought we would just make some picks at who we think are going to make the AFC Championship, the NFC Championship, and ultimately who's going to go on and win the Super Bowl. So again, just to see if see how much we can disagree in one episode.
This is incredibly unprofessional, but before we start this segment, I'm going to have to go and get my laptop charger because it's just about to die. So I will leave you to...
no problem. Well, I'll maybe... Yeah, no, that's fine. I'll just talk through some on here first. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk through, first of all, the awards. So the awards that we'll touch on, we've obviously got the biggest and most important, the MVP. We're going to pick a Coach of the Year, an Offensive Player of the Year, a Defensive Player of the Year, Rookie of the Year, and then Rookie Offensive Player and Rookie Defensive Players of the Year. And I guess I will go first, and I will say that for MVP, I'm going to go MVP, and I'm going to go Patrick Mahomes. So we know how good he is. It's not probably a surprise.
But he was terrible in the preseason, Mark. He was terrible in the preseason.
But the preseason doesn't matter. You've taught me that. So no. So I think Patrick Mahomes, he's primed for it. I think if you look from a bookie perspective, I think he's up there as you would expect. It's no big surprise for anybody probably listening that I've gone for him. I just think if we are going to get back to the Super Bowl, then I think he'll need to play again because he dropped off ever so slightly last year. Again, probably wasn't helped by some of the offensive line issues we kind of had down the stretch, and the fact that we've not got a pass rusher on the team, a true edge pass rusher. So we were involved in some closer games and things like that. He's going to need to play well for us to be up there challenging. So I've gone for Patrick Mahomes as MVP. How about yourself, Rob?
I mean, to be fair to you, Mark, I agree with that. I've gone different just for the sake of the podcast because this would be a very boring podcast if we just had everything the same. And given what we just talked about, I've actually put Josh Allen down. So I'm doubling down. I'm backing him to have a good season. I'm backing him to put that team on his back, maintain his progress, and prove to everybody that he is one of the top 5 quarterbacks in the league. So plus I kind of want it to happen. So that's what I've got.
Okay. Coach of the Year. Do you want to go first on that?
Yeah, I mean, I struggled with a number of these. I think there's potential.
It's an interesting exercise, isn't it? Because everyone has an opinion at the time when the decisions are handed out, but kind of picking somebody going into the season. Yeah, I thought it was an interesting exercise.
It's difficult because again, there's a load of coaches that could win it. I really like. I know we've spoken about this before. Ron Rivera at Washington, if he can get a cohesive team going down there, and he can put a bit of a run together, I could see that happening. I've plumped for Sean McVay, which I think probably for the reasons I just said is why I've got the Rams in the top 4. He's a large part of it. I just think with the upgrade at quarterback, as I've already talked through, I think they're going to be there or thereabouts. I can see them having a good season. It's going to be their first season in SoFi with a crowd, so I think they'll get the back in there. And Super Bowl is at SoFi actually, isn't it? So there's that's something to aim for. Yep,
that's why Derek Carr thinks that the Raiders are going to beat the Rams in Week 1 because
David.
Anyway, we won't go there.
Incredible, that wasn't it?
Oh yeah. So I've gone for this is going to make some people laugh. But I've gone for Mo's brother, Robert Salah, at New York, the New York Jets. They're set up for him to win it if they play well. That's one of the reasons why I've picked them. Like you said, there are certain scenarios where they would kind of have the edge. So, like if somebody like Ron Rivera did well with everything that he had happened to him last year with his cancer scare and things, I think he'd be set up really well to kind of win that award. I think Robert Salah's in another good position like that, where the Jets have stunk for so long. If they do anything resembling like a good season, and Wilson looks the part, and they're progressing, I think he'll have a really good shout to win that award. I do expect the Jets to probably finish bottom of that division still, but I think it will be much more competitive than it has been in recent years. And I think, if they can nick a win off a Buffalo or a New England, or maybe double down on Miami, I think, and have a decent season, I think he's got a really good shot.
He was one of the ones that was in my mind. I know we both love what they did in the draft, and you're right, it wouldn't take much if they won 2 games last season. If they had a winning season and there was progress and everything, then he could definitely be in the mix.
Yeah. So offensive player of the year, what I would say here, I caveat my decision with, because if somebody wins MVP, normally you could just pick them for the offensive as well. But we deliberately picked somebody else here. So as I said, I went for Mahomes for MVP, and I've gone in a totally different direction for offensive player of the year, and I've gone for Mike Evans. We both agree that Tampa Bay are going to probably have another really good season. And I think Evans now, with a year under his belt with Brady, I think he's an absolute monster anyway, Mike Evans. I think he's a great player. And I can just see them slinging it everywhere this year. I think the only thing that scares me in terms of this pick is the fact that they have, and I can't think of his name, their number 2 wide receiver, the speedy guy. Chris Godwin. Chris Godwin is going to take some of those shares, and obviously we all know that Brady likes to throw to different people each week to annoy all fantasy owners. So that does scare me a little bit in terms of how many touches he'll have. But I just think the potential's there for him to have just such a huge year, and I wanted to go somewhere a little bit different than just picking a different quarterback. So that's where I've gone.
I mean, I'd never have had Mike Evans down for that, but I like your rationale, I like your reasonings, and I like that you've gone somewhere different. I've gone somewhere different as well. I've gone for a tight end. Tight end has never won it before.
Not called Kyle Pitts, though.
I've gone for Kyle, but no. I've gone for Travis Kelce because I'm expecting, as we've already discussed, I'm expecting the Chiefs to be good again this season. We're expecting Mahomes to be good. Kelce's going to see a lot of the ball. I just thought it was more entertaining to go for a tight end since it has never been a tight end before, but I can absolutely see it because the man is an absolute monster. He's going to be getting fed the ball a lot. He's going to score a hell of a lot of touchdowns.
He stays fit.
Exactly. But
you can't say the same about anybody. He's getting old. He's getting older now, should I say? And
he's 31, is he?
Yeah, 31, 32, maybe something like that. Obviously we need to make sure, again, like I said before, that we keep these players fit because they're kind of the key for us. So I mean, I'd be chuffed to bits if he won an offensive player of the year, put it that way. So how about defensive player of the year then?
I've gone controversial because I haven't gone for Aaron Donald. I've gone for Myles Garrett. So I think he's been in the league a good few seasons now. Last season he had some COVID issues. He caught COVID and he probably still wasn't fully recovered. We all agree that they've got an absolutely stacked roster. I think, like you, Mark, they're going to have a very good season. I can just see him being an absolute beast off the edge for them. So I think he's going to get a hell of a lot of sacks. He's going to see the field a lot. So I've gone for Myles Garrett.
As long as he doesn't go around hitting people with their own helmet, then he probably will have a really good year, wouldn't he? I think he's a great player, and I think he was certainly in my mind when I was picking this. I think there's a few people that you could. Obviously, the money, if I have to put money on this, I'm going Aaron Donald all day. Like you said, there's nobody else I would pick if I was betting on this with my own money. But just to throw different people out there, I thought about Myles Garrett. I thought about, obviously, Chase Young, about TJ Watt, about Nick Bosa. There's various people on the edge that you would expect to have a good year. I've gone somewhere a little bit different, though, and hopefully you'll understand my logic. So I've gone for Montez Sweat, the other defensive end in Washington. So they have probably the best front four in the NFL. They've got Chase Young on one side, they've got Montez Sweat on the other, and then they've got two, I think, Alabama products in the middle. I always forget their names, but they've got two really good defensive tackles as well.
Jonathan Allen's one of them, isn't he? I think.
Yeah, Jonathan Allen's one, and I forget the other one. But so they've got the best front four in the NFL for me, with one of the best edge rushers on one side. We know then that the pressures, the kind of protection is going to be skewed a little bit towards Chase Young. And I just think that Montez Sweat is a very, very, very good player in his own right. And he's on the other side to Chase Young. And I can just see him statistically being better than Chase Young. I'm not saying he's a better player, because I don't think he is. But statistically, and we all know that these awards go on statistics, I can see Montez Sweat having more sacks, more pressures, than Chase Young does. So that's kind of where I went.
No, I appreciate the rationale. I get that. That makes sense to me. Like you say, we've tried to make this interesting and gone a little bit off piste. I think Darren Payne is that the other?
Oh, Darren Payne, yeah, he's the other one. So yeah, they're both Alabama products, aren't they? Both very, very good, very good interior defensive linemen.
You're right. Chase Young's going to take most of the attention from the opposing team, and it could leave Sweat free. So yeah, can't argue with that rationale. Do we move on to Rookie of the Year?
Yep, let's do Rookie of the Year.
I don't think anybody will be surprised by either of our picks.
No.
But I have gone with a young man called Trevor Lawrence, who is the future Hall of Famer that currently plays for the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Yeah, and I was fully expecting you to make that pick. I'm not going to lie. And he has every chance at the end of the day. He's the number one pick. If he looks remotely good and the Jags win, again, a bit like the Jets, if the Jags won one game last year, if they go and have a winning record this year and Lawrence looks good doing so, then he has every chance. But I'm betting on my man to have the better year, and I'm going for Zach Wilson. I said going into it all that I thought he was the best quarterback prospect, as in, when I say that, obviously Lawrence has gone through high school. He's been the number one player coming out of high school, going into college. He's then gone through college and been the number one player. I get why it sounds really stupid for me to come along and say that Zach Wilson is a better prospect. I get that. What I'm basing that on is I just believe that Zach Wilson is a better player, and I think he will, over the length of his career, I think he'll win more games and he will look like the better player. And I think it starts straight away. I think when we went into the season when we were going into the drafts where Mahomes got drafted by the Chiefs, and I can remember saying to you at the time, Rob, that there's some Aaron Rodgers in him. He reminded me of Aaron Rodgers, and everybody's like, "What are you talking about?" And then Chiefs move up and they draft him, and the rest is history. I could see some Patrick Mahomes in Zach Wilson, and whether I'm just totally wrong there, we'll see. But I see some of the same things that I saw. Some kind of, he's got a big arm. He makes plays outside of the pocket. He scrambles well. And he looks fantastic doing it. He's going to win Rookie of the Year. You heard it here first.
I mean, you're wrong, but
what about Offensive Rookie of the Year then?
This one I thought was possibly the easiest one I did, to be honest, because usually I find the Rookie of the Year is a quarterback, and then they try to go in a different direction for the Offensive Rookie of the Year. So I've gone with Najee Harris, running back at the Steelers. They've got nobody else on that roster. Big Ben's very old and not very good anymore. So I think they're going to rely heavily on the run game. I know the offensive line is a concern, but I just think they're going to feed him touches. He's going to score a hell of a lot of points. And like you've just said about statistics, he'll score a lot of touchdowns. He'll make a lot of yards. He'll see a lot of plays. So this was a bit of a no-brainer for me.
Yeah, and to be fair, I nearly picked Harris myself, but then I think out of the fact that I don't want the Steelers to do well, and I think they picked him too early in the draft. Blah 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 blah. I just kind of decided not to bother with that, and I kind of did what I probably said I shouldn't have done earlier, but I've gone for Trevor Lawrence. I think it's if Wilson's going to win, if Zach Wilson's going to win MVP, then I think, for me, Lawrence would have to win Offensive Rookie of the Year because he's going to be the second best player as a rookie. So that's kind of where I've gone. It's cheating a little bit, but
I appreciate it.
That's kind of what I decided. And then Defensive Player of the Year. I've gone a little bit more out of the box. I think you've made a solid pick here, which again, I think the money, if I was betting my own money, I'd probably go where you've gone. But I've gone a little bit out of the box and gone with Kwity Paye, the defensive end out of Indianapolis. For what it's worth, in preseason, he looked a bit of a monster on his however many limited snaps. I think he's immediately the number one pass rusher there in Indianapolis. And again, I think people coming off in terms of standing out and looking good, somebody with a bunch of sacks is going to be in a really good position to win Rookie of the Year. I know loads of tackles look really good, and linebackers do often win it from the volume of tackles and things like that. But I just think if you're coming off the edge and you're killing quarterbacks, I think you've got a really good chance, and I think he's going to be the best. He looks to be one of the best rookies so far at doing that. So I've gone for Kwity Paye.
And he's on your dynasty team, so you're clearly.
And he's on my dynasty team, yeah. So yeah.
I was surprised. I thought you might have gone Azeez Ojulari, given your previous love for him.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything from him so far that backs up any of my previous thoughts, though. So we'll maybe save that for next year.
Okay. We've already spoken about him, really. So I've just gone Micah Parsons from the Cowboys. Everything I've seen for it, and I know I've said preseason doesn't matter. It kind of tongue in cheek. It does for certain players, and you clearly can still see things, and you can pick up on stuff. And I've clearly seen more of him. As I said before, there's that Hard Knocks bias, but just everything he's done, he just looks like an absolute beast. So that's what I've gone for him.
I think it's good value for money wise if you were betting on it. I think the one person that's I've been impressed with in preseason that we've not talked about that I could quite easily have gone here is the defensive end that Tampa picked, that Joe Tryon. I didn't know a lot about him, I must admit, coming into the draft. Wasn't somebody I really scouted that much, so I didn't really know that much about him. They obviously picked him at the end of the first round, and he's looked really good as well. So if you are looking for somebody to put a bet on, then I don't think you can go far wrong there if he's going to get some snaps and he's going to be playing on potentially one of the Super Bowl teams. I think he's going to get a lot of coverage, so I think that would be a good shout as well. So they are our kind of award picks, and what we said we'll do is probably revisit some of the power rankings and the predictions sort of halfway through the season and see how things have changed and kind of do another episode on those later on. And we'll also kind of touch on. So the next thing we're going to touch on is who we actually think are going to make the AFC Championship game, NFC Championship game, the Super Bowl, and ultimately who's going to win. I think, given what we've already said about some of the other things throughout this episode, none of this is probably going to come as a surprise. So we'll kind of go over it fairly quickly. But I've gone for Cleveland and Kansas City to make the AFC Championship game. They're my number two and number three in my power rankings. So stands to reason that I would have them and they're my number 1 and 2 picks in the AFC. So that's what I've gone for there. And I've gone for Green Bay and Tampa, who again are my number 1 and number 2 teams in from the NFC in my power rankings. So that's who I've gone for. I've then got a rerun of last year. I think if I'm putting money on who's going to make the Super Bowl, I think anybody who's not betting on Tampa Bay and Kansas City, probably onto a losing bet, to be honest. I think that's where I can see it going, barring injuries or anything uncertain. And I would like to think that with some offensive linemen who are actually not injured, that we would be able to turn things around. So I've gone for the Chiefs.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really argue too much with any of that. I've gone slightly different, just because I would like it to be different. I think the NFL's at its best when it mixes things up. I think at the minute, though, I can definitely see it just being a continuation of last year. So for the AFC Championship, I've gone for Bills, Chiefs. Cleveland could easily get there. I think, as we've said throughout this pod, really like their roster. but I've gone for the Bills, and that sort of aligns with my power rankings too. NFC Championship, I've gone for the Rams against the Bucks. Obviously, I'm a lot higher on the Rams than you are. I think, again, you just can't look past the Bucks, though. And then Super Bowl, obviously, Rams Chiefs. And again, just to be different, just to be contrary, I've gone for the Rams to win it all. So there you go.
We'll see
how
I'm
going to look stupid.
Yeah, I was going to say, when we review these halfway through the year, we can see just how silly you looked at this point, but that's fine. It's good to be different. And we've actually, to be fair, you didn't really need to do it because we've disagreed on many other things that we could have just agreed on this bit. But anyway.
No, I'm not sure if we're even friends anymore. So,
so then coming up to, we've got a couple more bits, but what we thought we'd do then is every year, as I'm sure many people do who like American football, we run our own little kind of pick'em league where we pick each of the results from each game each week and see who's better at that at the end of the year. So we're going to do another one this year, and what we thought we would do is just kind of share our picks on the podcast for the week, and then see how we do throughout the season. And then, as I said, if anybody listening in wants to get involved, we can kind of share that, and some listeners can get involved, and we can see who does a better job come the end of the year. We won't necessarily, I'll run through what we've all got. I'm going to do the picks that we agree on first. I'll just run through those really quickly, and then the ones that we differ, we can maybe talk about why we see things a little bit different. So Tampa Bay, Dallas opening game. We both see Tampa Bay winning that. I think it would be quite a big shock if Dallas were to beat Tampa Bay straight out the gate. Jacksonville, Houston. We've both gone for the Jags. Philadelphia, Atlanta. We're both very low on Philadelphia. You're slightly higher on Atlanta. I think that'll be fairly comfortable to Atlanta. So we've both gone Atlanta there. Buffalo, Pittsburgh. We've both gone Buffalo. San Fran at Detroit. We've both gone 49ers, unsurprisingly. Minnesota at Cincinnati. We've both gone for the Vikings. Denver at New York Giants. We've both gone Denver. Green Bay at New Orleans. We've gone Green Bay. Chicago at the Rams. We've both gone the Rams. And we've both got Baltimore beating Las Vegas. So the ones are where we differ. The first one is Seattle at Indianapolis. I believe the Seahawks will win this game. As I've touched on before, you've obviously got taken a fancy to the Rams this year with the upgraded quarterback and their defense. I said before, kind of tongue-in-cheek, but it wouldn't surprise me if they finished third in that division, and I think the 49ers will win that division, and I think Seattle will be fighting with the Rams for the second spot in that division. I expect Seattle to be better this year than they have been. Hopefully, Russell can have a full season of playing well. He started out last season; he was amazing through like the first 5 or 6 games, and there was talk of him winning the MVP and all the rest of it. And then he kind of tailed off. Hopefully, he can kind of keep that going. But in terms of this game specifically, I don't know who's playing quarterback. And even if Carson Wentz is playing quarterback, I don't know how much I trust him these days to be able to do anything other than throw the ball to the opposition. I just can't see Indianapolis winning this game.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of a coin toss for me. I just went Indianapolis on gut. I think Wentz can be decent in that offense, especially being reunited with Frank Reich, where he's had some of his best seasons. I think last season was a bit of an aberration. I think there's probably other things going on at the Eagles who are a bit of a organisationally, they weren't in a good place. There was all the stuff that was going on with Doug Peterson, etc. So I'm going to give him a bit of a pass for that, to be honest. I think Seattle could be good. It's in Indianapolis. I like some of the Colts receivers. I like the Colts as a team. I think Chris Ballard's built a really good roster there since arriving. It is a coin flip for me.
Okay, cool. Washington, LA Chargers is the next one. So the Chargers at Washington. I've gone for the Chargers. You've gone for Washington.
All right, but first you'll have to unlock your device.
Sorry, Siri's getting involved.
Siri disagrees,
Yeah, so I've gone for the Chargers. You've gone for Washington. I think we're both quite high on Washington, but I think I must be slightly higher on the Chargers. Or whether, again, it's one of these where it's a toss-up and it's at home. So, you've gone for the home team, whereas I expect the Chargers to be the Chiefs' closest kind of competitors this year, and and I think they're going to surprise a few people. So that's why I went for the Chargers.
Yeah, it's a funny one. I went with Washington just because I think they'll be a bit more settled. They've got now they've got a competent quarterback. They've got Fitzpatrick. I know he has his faults, but I like Fitzpatrick. They've got McLaurin. They've got Samuel at wide receiver. The running back Antonio Gibson, I think, is excellent. The defense that we touched upon, I think, is lights out. I think Justin Herbert in his second season, I think he is due a bit of a regression. I think teams might have a bit more of a book on him now. Obviously, he had a great season last season, but when he's playing up against that front four, like we spoke about earlier, I think it's going to be a massive challenge for him. The Chargers, Brandon Staley's come in for them. I don't know what kind of philosophy he's going to try and impart. So I just think it's going to be, I think with it being the first game, I can see them still trying to figure some stuff out, and I trust the Washington staff and I trust the Washington players just to get the job done, really.
Okay. The next one that we disagree on is the Jets at the Panthers. So obviously we all know that I'm super high on the Jets. I am, but I'm not thinking they're going to win the Super Bowl or anything, but I am quite high on them. I just see this as a huge game. It's going to be one that I'm definitely watching because of the whole Darnold thing and the Jets and all the rest of it. And I just so want Zach Wilson to go into Carolina and absolutely murder them. So maybe this pick is coming more out of what I hope to happen than what I think is going to happen. But I can't fathom a scenario where Sam Darnold plays well and beats the Jets. I just can't see it.
I just knew you were going to pick the Jets, so I thought I'd pick the Panthers. I think I'm higher on Sam Darnold than you. I think there is a chance that he's a decent quarterback. He's still only very, very, very young. We've had this conversation so many times. It is a toss-up for me. I think Matt Rule, from a coaching point of view, I think he's going to be a very good coach in this league. It could go either way for me, this one. I knew you would put the Jets, so I just went.
It really could go either way. I mean, I'm surprised actually that the bookies have got like the Panthers like 4 or 5 point favourites, even though they are at home. But that's kind of where we differ there. So the next one is Arizona at Tennessee. This is one for me that I really struggled with, and to be fair, I could quite easily have picked either of these teams. I've realised I've picked Arizona, and again, that's another team that are having to travel and play away. But I'm not that high on Tennessee this year at all. I think they're going to really struggle. I think they've lost too many things offensively, too many players offensively, and I can't see them being as good. And I think Arizona, if Cliff Kingsbury is going to keep his job, they need to have a really good season this year. That's not to say that they will, but I think they're going to have to do. They clearly made some moves. Not all of them did I agree with, but I think they will be slightly better. And I think this is a game that if they're going to win many games this year, this is one that they have to win. So I've gone Arizona.
Yeah, it's a difficult one. I think Tennessee probably have one more season. I do like the addition of Julio Jones alongside AJ Brown. I know he's older now. He might not be fit. There are concerns there, but if that works out, I can see them still being good. Tannehill, I think he's proved it wasn't just a one-season fluke. The offense is well established. Obviously, we've got Derrick Henry. I won't be taking Derrick Henry in any drafts that I'm a part of because I think it's the amount of load he's had on his body and the seasons that he's had. I thought last season he would take a decline, and he's proven me wrong, and he very well will probably prove me wrong this season. But if it's not this season, it'll be next. It can only go for so long. Yeah. But I'm thinking they've got one more season to keep it going. And I'm not really sold on Cliff Kingsbury. I like some of the moves that the Cardinals have made. I like Rondale Moore, who they've brought in, their rookie at wide receiver. Cliff Kingsbury concerns me more than anything as part of this, really.
No, I totally get that. I totally get that. Then, unsurprisingly, I've gone for the Chiefs at home to Cleveland. You've gone for the Browns.
Can I just say that I think the Chiefs will win?
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, is that just to be different? Yeah, okay. Well, we'll move on then. And then the final game that we differ on is Miami at New England. And again, this is probably a product again of how high I am on Mac Jones versus how low I am on Tua, and you probably being the other way around. Maybe I'm wrong, but yeah, New
I
England.
wouldn't say I'm high on Tua, but I think
than me.
I'm higher than you. Yes, definitely, without a shadow of a doubt. And I'm less sold on Matt Jones. I also just want this to happen. This is a bit of a toss-up. I think Miami could be quite good, or they also could be terrible. So it could go either way, but I kind of just wanted this to happen. I just wanted to put it out there into the universe, give it some positive energy.
Fair enough. Well, so what we'll be doing, we'll make these picks, and what we'll do is we'll, on our social media, on a Twitter account, whatever, we'll post a link to the group. If anybody that's listens do want to get involved, then by all means feel free to join and kind of compete against us. That would be good if people could get involved. So the last little section that we've got, it's a new section, and I'm going to run through this very quickly. But each week, I'm just going to bring forward a name from the previous week in college football, just as a bit of a kind of a look forward at some of the people that we might be talking about in the draft. But I'm not necessarily picking just draft eligible players or whatever. It's just anybody that I've watched in the previous week that I thought looked really good. I thought it'd just be interesting to get some names out there. So week 0 that happened last week, because it wasn't a full stretch of games in college. Week 1 is kind of happening at the moment. Last week there was week 0. And one of the games that was played was the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors were taking on the UCLA Bruins. And somebody that I'd never heard of jumped out the screen. A lot of my scouting when I watch college football and when I kind of do preparing for fantasy dynasty leagues and just my drafting and things and scouting, one of the things I do is I'll watch a game because I think I want to see a certain player, and then somebody else will tend to kind of jump off the screen at me, and I'm like, who the hell are you? And that certainly happened in this game. There's a running back called Zach Charbonnet, I think is how you pronounce his name. And he's a running back, 6'1", 220 pounds. He's not even the starting running back for UCLA. He only got 11. He only played in 11 snaps in the entire game. 7 total touches, 6 runs, and then a catch. But he scored 106 yards, 3 touchdowns, and he stood out as being a man amongst boys. Literally, he was really good. I think he scored 106 yards on just his 6 carries, 17.5 yards a rush, and 59 of those 106 yards came after contact. He was literally blowing through people, which is why he stood out as much as he did. So I'll be interested to see if that was a fluke and that's why he's not the lead back, or whether he kind of continues to look that good, and he's somebody that we need to pay attention to moving forward.
I mean, those stats are just incredible. When I saw that, when you dropped that in the chat, off those, minimal amount of touches and the yards after, wow.
He played really well. He graded really well from a PFF point of view, 92.2 PFF grade, which is obviously extremely high. He's obviously not going to keep that up, I wouldn't have thought, and those stats up, but he looked very impressive. So he's my Mr. Relevant of the week. And then finally, we will end, as we always do, with a whinge of the week. And I have the honour this week. And all I'm going to say, I'm going to keep it very brief, but a few weeks ago, I saw a question on Twitter come up, and it was, is Cam Newton a Hall of Famer? And at the time, I laughed. And the amount of attention that post got, and everybody was chiming in, and he has such a strong following, and it was quite close, that poll. I think it ended up something like 57-43 or something, that he wasn't a Hall of Famer. Thankfully it went the right way, and then obviously I'm hugely against that point of view. He's definitely not a Hall of Famer. In my eyes, he's nowhere near a Hall of Famer, and obviously he then couldn't beat out Matt Jones in the quarterback competition in New England. And my whinge is just that, Cam is just so overrated. And I'll leave it there.
I mean, I like Cam, but that is absolutely ridiculous. That is absolutely crazy.
Exactly.
There's no way he is a Hall of Famer. No chance in hell.
No.
That's crazy. Absolutely crazy.
Exactly. So there we go. Bumper episode, an hour and a half. I don't think we actually did that bad there, Rob, to be honest, with everything that we had.
I was very worried at one point, but then we sort of dragged it back a bit, I think.
So if it sounded rushed in the last 20 minutes, apologies. So this is obviously the week before the NFL season kicks off. So we need to understand the logistics of how we're going to work the pod moving forward. We hope that we will be able to do one a week going forward, and we'll have some regular segments and look back on the games that have played, looking ahead at the games to come, etc. We just need to figure out a way how that fits into our kind of working week. So we're probably going to switch from doing them at weekends to maybe on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. I think that's probably when they're going to start coming out moving forward. And as I said before, we'll tweet out the pick'em thing when we've got that set up, so people can get involved if they want to. If anybody's got any particular questions, whatever, they can drop us a line on Twitter or whatever at Fourth and Whinges on Twitter. Anything else you want to say before we end, Rob?
No, let's get out of here.
Okay. And with that, we will call it a day on the Fourth and Whinges podcast. See you next time. Whew.
Will you start the recording?
I'm trying to.